Hi. Having a sound ethical framework is very important in every profession. With more and more individuals working in organizations, there is an opportunity and a need to define code of conduct with a sound value system. Today I have with me Suriyaprakash from Coimbatore, a professor in organizational behavior, an OD consultant, coach, counselor, transaction analyst, and a former president of the International Transaction Analysis Association. Delighted to have you here, Surya.
Same here.
What are the typical ethical dilemmas that organizations face, and what has been your experience of how they deal with it?
In organizations, often we hear of and people are aware of the gross ethical violations, which we often see in the media, like abuse or exploitation or exploitation of natural resources and so on, unfair trade practices. But what affects people's lives on a day-to-day basis in organizations are the subtle ethical dilemmas that they have to face, which often results due to the difference in their personal values and the organizational values. So, in my experience, what I've noticed is employees are often torn between the confusion between their personal roles, organizational roles, and their professional roles. For example, favoritism, where a boss favors one over the other out of personal choices rather than their professional performance, or holding grudge or vindictiveness over the employees when they are assessing their performance and so on. So it is these day-to-day issues that people come across, which affects their equanimity in terms of making choices and decisions in their day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that many of these things may not even be recognized. People may not even recognize that. So, how does one identify and help organizations to correct these?
So this is where the role of the leadership and the management becomes significant. By establishing a culture of transparency and openness, people would be invited to share their opinions and voices whenever they see any violations. Then, putting in place systems when people adhere to these ethical principles that the organization stands for, those people getting rewarded, or whenever there is a violation, ethical violation being reported, when people are being punished in some manner. Either, like for example, many organizations have a zero tolerance policy towards unethical practices. So if there is a culture of openness and candor, where people could openly give feedback even to their superiors or report of any unethical practices that they have come across, and then the organization takes a zero tolerance stance and respond towards it, I think these issues could be handled much better.
So, what I'm really hearing you say is one, a dialogue where people have a space to talk. Secondly, a system which where there is reward and there is a consequence of actions, which is taken very seriously and not there for the sake of being there, but yeah.
So that brings us to the idea of congruity in what the organization states and what is being practiced on the ground. And we all know very well that people respond to how people behave and not necessarily what people say.
Right.
So again, the onus is on the leadership that you establish a code of ethics and you also model to the employees down the line that how to uphold those ethical principles.
So, what steps do you think organizations can take to effectively implement these systems in place?
Primarily, organizations need to have an explicit code of ethics apart from the stated values that the organization stand for. And of course, these two need to be aligned. The code of ethics need to be aligned with their stated values. Second, most importantly, like any learning process, people need to be constantly reminded of these values. It's not It should not be something that is spoken up in their annual meetings or in the one-off get-togethers. Instead, it has to be reflected in every meeting, every communication, at least on a monthly reminder of.
Faces.
So communication is the key in sending the message to the employees that we mean what we have declared as a code of ethics. Then the third, which I said earlier, the leadership modeling to the employees how to act ethically in these, in the way of implementing these codes. Then I think people would know, not only know what the ethical principles are, but also they know how it could be reflected in their actions. Because people need modeling in learning these principles. Because ethics is not something that could be taught. It is more something that is lived. So when people see their leadership and the management living those ethical principles, then I think that's the best way to inculcate and build a culture of ethics.
So what I'm really hearing you say is it is a leadership that has to take the onus and model it and show it.
Yes.